So I love this picture. I really love this picture. And I love it that it's framed by the words of economics and democracy in a golden civilization. I love it for a variety of reasons. I feel that, to me, it actually speaks. Even though there are no people in it, there's no civilization in it, I feel that it speaks about both economics and democracy in a golden civilization. And because partly because it's in the context of a natural environment, of our natural environment, of Mother Earth. And you can feel it. Gosh, the grass, you can almost walk out onto it. You can almost smell it. To me, it feels a little chilly out there, but wonderful, wonderful in freshness. And I love the light coming down, the golden light coming down and shining across the mountains and the hills. And you can feel, again, you can feel this sense of resources. That is what economics often takes advantage of, exploits, but it's there. This is this wonderful earth that we have. And what I love most, it's not just about the resources and the light. It's that standing there, imagining ourselves standing there, I don't know about you, I feel a sense of awe. Like, wow, I just can't believe that I'm here. And in a golden civilization, that's how I imagine economics and democracy. I just can't imagine that we've done it, that we're here, that we're making this happen. So to me, this feels like it's captured the essence of economics and democracy, because in our relationship with each other, rather than one of distrust or of cynicism, we would feel that awe and that sense of naturalness, that sense of authenticity inside ourselves and in our environment. So what I'd like to do is just look at this question of economics and democracy as a set of contrasts. But starting with the notion up at the top, we are a democracy and we can do whatever we want. Okay? So we are at a crossroads. We are at a profound moment historically. And are we going to choose to make a world that is sustainable and a democracy that's sustainable, a civilization that's sustainable? It's up to us. And if we go into kind of our usual kind of lethargy and feeling powerless, even codependent on our politicians and the powers, the hierarchical powers that are out there, we'll never succeed. So it really requires each of us to understand that we are the powers in a golden civilization. So let's just look at this. So the civilization, first of all, I want to say that even though there's a contrast up there, and we've got civilization, which is kind of our modern civilization as we know it, with a golden civilization, to me, the whole thing is here right now. Okay, it's all here. It's just a question of moving our awareness and our attention, our passion, our purpose, our hearts, more than anything, toward this other side. And make sure that the hierarchies of power that have been created also move their attention toward this other side. So let's go down the side of civilization, just to begin with, as we see it right now. So great brains, right? It's the 250 years since the Industrial Revolution, the astonishing things that we've done and are still doing. The discoveries in the solar system and in the universe that we've made, and the discoveries deep inside ourselves, not just to our hearts, but to the quantum physics, and just amazing things that we're gathering, knowledge, and creating great technology out of it. So amazing stuff. Great brains. Driven a lot by self-interest. Okay, I don't know how many of you know this, but it's the term of art in economics. It's kind of the essential term of economics. It was Adam Smith's brilliant idea. I love Adam Smith. It was his brilliant idea that an economy of small shopkeepers, of you and me, an economy of human beings interacting with each other, going after their own self-interest, would create a marvelously efficient economy. He would be horrified at how the term is used now to basically justify the self-interest of large corporations. He mocked large corporations. He thought they were a disaster. He would not have approved of the way we've gone forward, and certainly would not agree with those who trumpet self-interest in the way they trumpet self-interest now. Okay? But self-interest is very important. In market systems, it works beautifully, unless it's the self-interest of a large organization versus the self-interest of a small human being. And then we know who's going to win. There's no efficiency there. It's dominance is what happens. So after self-interest on this list, I've got negative externalities. So that's another term from the world of economics. What it means is the unintended consequences. And some of them, you might argue, are intended, but here are some of them. There's war. There's, I had pollution up there, but I changed it to earth dangers, threats to planet Earth, inequality, corruption, cynicism, distrust, and autocracy. I mean, there are many more that we could put up there. I love having cynicism and distrust up there. In a golden civilization, they hardly appear. We know that our civilization has a disease by the degree of cynicism and distrust that we have in it. They are not healthy for human beings. And I think you can trace a lot of the ills in society to how we've kind of created a society that has more and more of that in it. So these are negative externalities, in spite of the great technological wonders that we've created. And a lot of this, of course, is driven by money. Money, again, is a marvelous efficiency, because it gives us an immediate measure of value, of worth. What happens in economics, and what has happened in economics, is we have, in using money, it allows us to focus on moments of transaction. And so that becomes the central focus of economic activity. It's a very different frame from moments of freedom, which is what we really care about. So I'm going to come to that. But it's very useful. All of these things are very useful, except the negative externalities. Moments of transaction, it's all about acquisition. Once again, the focus is on GDP, which is gross domestic products. The focus is on jobs. But products and jobs do not equal the maximization of freedom. I mean, if what we're really looking at is to maximize freedom, we can do it directly now. And that's one of the things that I'm proposing here. So if you think about it, if money is the measure of freedom, then one person, one human being, could accumulate all the money in the world. And then where would freedom be? Where would our freedom be? Or an oligarchy? So it clearly doesn't capture what we want. And yet there are wonderful efficiencies. Money is very helpful. Markets, same thing. Free markets, I'm a huge fan of free markets. But the people who talk about free markets usually are coming from an institutional standpoint. It's not a free market where institutions dominate the market. It's not free at all. And so, in fact, it's filled with inefficiencies. So markets are another important element. And then Earth. Earth really, as we showed in the picture, Earth is a great resource. And in that picture, it's a resource of awe. It's a resource of telling us who we are by standing in that wonderful scene on the grass, feeling the cool air inside of us. The Earth is an incredible resource, also obviously a resource in terms of things that we can use from the earth. But in this particular model, the worst of it makes the earth exploitable. And we know that that has great dangers. And as we grow in power, as our hierarchies of power grow, the dangers become much, much more terrifying. So let's contrast that with this other world, the golden civilization, that I think is really already here. But I think also that in terms, if we want to establish the structures that make sure that it's sustainable and we know that it's here and all of us know that it's here, it is going to take a generation. So, and that's what I'm looking at. Not 1,000 years, not 100 years. Look back to now, throw out the systems that don't work, adopt those that do, and let's make it happen in a generation. Let's make it happen so we can see it, so our children can see it and know it and live in it. So what does a golden civilization look like in contrast to this? Well, very simply, great hearts. Yeah, that's pretty simple, right? When you meet someone, who do you trust? The person with a great brain or the person with a great heart, if you had to choose? Great hearts. It's just as simple as can be. A golden civilization is a civilization of great hearts. And what comes out of it comes out of those great hearts. So rather than self-interest, the way that I have framed this, I think self-interest is wonderful, marvelous, has many efficiencies to it. But it belongs in a larger frame, a frame that I would call self-knowledge. And self-knowledge can be hard to, what is self-knowledge and all that? So I've defined it for you up here. I think of self-knowledge as having two elements to it. One of it is knowing our passionate purposes and having the freedom to pursue them. And one of the things that I would argue is that will maximize innovation across society much more than venture capital or private equity ever could imagine, because it means all of us living in freedom and seeing what we can add to society to make it a better place. That's how you maximize innovation that is actually humane and human. So self-knowledge, knowing our passionate purposes and having the freedom to pursue them. And the other piece is wisdom. Wisdom. So self-knowledge is knowing our direction, but it's also having that depth inside of ourselves to know who we are in the context of the planet, of the universe, of great spirit, of virtue, of the present moment, wisdom, and of each other, So self-interest is an element within self-knowledge, but self-knowledge is the virtue that a golden civilization would frame as being what we're all working with. All of us. Corporations, governments, nonprofits, all of us. So coming to the next piece, the negative externalities, I think they're easily dealt with. I say that, but any revolution of this kind is problematic and challenging in many ways. Integrity and fiduciary. In my field, the field of financial advice, we've talked about the fiduciary standard. And as I think about corporations and what it is, and governments as well, what we need from large institutions is a fiduciary obligation to all stakeholders. That's just very clear. They are our servants. They are not our rulers or our bosses. And so how do we do that? Well, we insist that the integrity of our economic and political systems is impeccable. Impeccable. So it's hard even to imagine that with what we see happening now. We just simply say, nope, this is what we want. We're a democracy. We're going to insist upon it starting now. And we make it happen. So the impeccability of integrity and a fiduciary standard across all fields of endeavor. The next piece is rather than focusing on moments of transaction, really the focus in society in a golden civilization is on moments of freedom. We don't want to maximize money in a society. We want to maximize freedom. If you're looking for the most efficient allocation of human resources, you're looking at a society where everybody is thriving and passionate with engagement in the world. That comes from having this focus be on moments of freedom. And among the freedoms that I see developing very quickly, and if we go for the golden civilization, is a freedom from war and a freedom from corruption. There is no reason for corruption, and there is no reason for war. When war arises, what does it do? It allows us to create hierarchies of power. It gets us to invest because they'll bring us safety, right? So what do those hierarchies of power do? They accumulate more and more power, and they become more and more corrupt. It's time to eliminate both of those as possibilities if we're to have a sustainable civilization, which is what I'm looking at. One of the things about all of this, it can sound like challenging, but if we've all got the vision and we say, no, it's got to happen, it'll happen. It'll happen. If we participate and say, we're going to make it happen, it will happen. I think of democracy and markets as being the centrifugal forces in society. Markets very helpful and essential. They have an essential inequality about them that helps dynamically give room for innovation to develop and get out to people all over the world. It's a wonderful thing. Democracy is inherently a system of equality. It's the system of great hearts. We are all in this together. And no one has more power and more influence than another in a great democracy, in a golden civilization. So as much as these are kind of the two wonderful engines that we are seeing right now in civilization, they are not equal. Democracy has to set the rules. Or we see one of the things that we see in the negative externalities is the rise of greater and greater inequalities. So it's democracy that says, no, this is the level of inequality that would really serve us as a golden civilization. It's us. We make that decision. Money out of politics is just one thing that I've put down there, just as a reminder of one of the most important things we need to do. But finally, in a golden civilization, the earth is sustainable. It's a resource in both of these visions, but it must be sustainable. Within a generation. I don't really have anything else to say other than we are democracy. We can do what we want. All we have to do is to claim that power.